library was quieter than he had expected. The scent of old books and freshly printed pages filled the air, offering a strange kind of comfort. He found an empty seat in the corner and pulled out his notebook, determined to focus on his assignments. But just as he was about to start writing, he heard a loud sigh from the table next to him. "Ah, who sent me to do engineering?" A voice growled dramatically. Rex turned to see a young man about his age, his face buried in his hands. His name tag read Tunji Oladipo. The guy looked like he was battling demons, mathematics demons to be specific. "Bro, are you okay?" Rex asked. Tunji lifted his head slowly, like a man who had just been told his exam is tomorrow. "Do I look okay? This lecturer gave us an assignment that only a wizard can solve. Guy, this thing is not for human beings." Rex picked at Tunji's notebook, recognizing a few mathematical symbols, but immediately regretting his curiosity. The equations looked like ancient spells written by a furious scientist. "You don't know how to solve it?" Rex asked again. Tunji gave him a blank stare. "Solve? My brother, I don't even know where to start from." "Maybe we can figure it out together," Rex said. Tunji sighed and sat up. "Fine, I will really appreciate it because this thing is turning my head." For the next 1 hour, the two of them wrestled with the assignment, flipping through textbooks, searching online, and even whispering prayers under their breaths. By some miracle, or perhaps by sheer luck, they managed to complete it. Tunji leaned back, rubbing his eyes. "If I survive this course, I am throwing a party. A big, big party. Free food for everyone, I promise." Rex's stomach growled at the mention of food, and Tunji raised an eyebrow. "Omo, you dey hungry?" Rex scratched his head. Kind of. I am still trying to figure out this whole cooking thing." Tunji burst into laughter. "Wait, you don't know how to cook?" Rex sighed. "Long story. Let's just say I was raised like a Nigerian prince, and now I am suffering the consequences." Tunji laughed to the extent that he teared up. "You know what? I will teach you. My mom made sure I learned how to cook before I left home. Even if I fail engineering, at least I won't starve." Rex asked with great excitement. "You really will help me?" "Of course," Tunji said, slapping his back. "But on one condition. After you learn how to cook, you will cook for me at least once." "That's no problem. Deal," Rex responded. That evening, Tunji took him to his hostel and introduced him to the magical world of actual cooking. "Step 1, Tunji said, tossing him an onion. "Cut this." Rex picked up the knife, ready to prove himself. He had seen his sisters cut onions before. The first slice went well. The second slice was decent, but by the third slice, the onion fumes hit his eyes. "Ah, Tunji, I am blind." Tunji cackled as Rex flailed around and tearing up like he had just watched the saddest movie in existence. "Oga, it's just onions now, relax," he managed to say. "I can't see. I am finished," Rex wailed, stumbling around the kitchen. Tunji had to physically hold him in place. "Calm down. If you cry this much over onions, what will you do when we cook pepper soup?" Rex sniffled, wiping his eyes. "Forget pepper soup first. At this point, I might just drink water for dinner." Tunji shook his head. "You have a long way to go, my friend." And that was how the first cooking class ended without lighting up the gas. One day, after intensive back-to-back lectures, hunger made Rex desperate to at least learn how to cook noodles. He simply made his way to the library. The first thing that hit him was the silence. It wasn't just quiet, it was the kind of silence that could make you feel guilty for existing. He shuffled inside awkwardly, unsure of where to go. He had come to the library today with one mission, which is to find a book that could teach him how to cook. He spotted an elderly librarian with half-moon glasses perched on her nose, a woman who looked like she had been born inside the library and never left. Rest approached her cautiously. "Good afternoon, ma," he whispered, trying to sound respectful. The woman glanced up, peering at him like he had just asked for permission to steal a book. "Yes," she replied. Please, ma, where do you keep the books on cooking?" The librarian blinked at him. "Cooking?" "Yes, ma. Cooking, as in food, as in rice and stew. I've been surviving on gala and coke for as long as I can remember, and it seems like I will die soon if I don't eat cooked food." The woman sighed dramatically, pushed back her glasses, and gestured for him to follow her. She walked so slowly that Rex had to fight the urge to pick her up and carry her there himself. Finally, they arrived at a dusty bookshelf with books that looked like they had been abandoned since Nigeria gained independence. The librarian ran her fingers along the spines of the books, muttering titles. "Yes, here." She pulled out a heavy book and handed it over to Rex. "Cooking for Dummies." Rex looked at the cover. The picture was of a smiling white man holding a frying pan. The man looked so happy, like cooking was the most enjoyable thing in the world. Rex squinted at him in suspicion. The only thing that ran through his mind was, "This man is clearly a liar." "Thank you, ma," he muttered, taking the book. The librarian gave him a long look. "Young man, are you just learning how to cook?" Rex cleared his throat. No, ma. I just want to expand my knowledge." The librarian gave him another look, the kind of look your mother gives you when you say you are full, but she sees you eyeing the last piece of meat. Then she shook her head and walked away. Rex took a seat and opened the book. The first chapter was called Understanding Your Kitchen. He sighed. He didn't have time for this nonsense. He already understood his kitchen. It was a hostile environment where food refused to behave and frying pans and pots always burning. He forced himself to read. "Cooking is an essential life skill," the book declared. "Knowing how to prepare a simple meal can mean the difference between survival and starvation." "Tell me something I don't know," Rex muttered, flipping through the pages. As he read, he learned shocking things. Apparently, pepper should not be added directly to hot oil unless you enjoy coughing like a dying goat. He also discovered that burning rice was not an ancient African tradition. It was just a mistake. Rex's eyes widened as he absorbed his forbidden knowledge. He felt like a village warrior who had just discovered modern weapons. "This is it," he whispered. "This is my way out of hunger." Then he heard the most terrifying sound in the world. His stomach growled so loudly that even the librarian at the far end of the room turned to look. "Bros, are you okay?" He shut the book immediately. "Yes, I am fine, ma. I think my stomach is only speaking in tongues." He shut the book, hugged it to his chest, and practically ran out of the library, determined to put his new knowledge to test. As he got back to his hostel, he was prepared for battle. He had his book, his ingredients, and his pride. He refused to embarrass himself again. He started by measuring the rice carefully, washing it like the book instructed, and putting it in the pot. So far, so good. The rice came out well. Then came the stew. He poured oil into the pan, waiting patiently for it to heat. He reached for the pepper, but the book's warning flashed in his mind. Do not add pepper to hot oil unless you want to meet your ancestors. He hesitated, then carefully mixed the pepper with tomatoes before adding it. No violent coughing this time. Step by step, Rex follows the book's instruction, muttering under his breath like a wizard casting a spell. When the stew was done, he dipped a spoon in and tasted it. His eyes widened. It wasn't terrible. In fact, it was good. He had done it. He, Rex Kingsley, the boy who once considered Gary and water a continental meal, had cooked something edible. At that moment, the door opened and his new friend Tunji walked in. He sniffed the air and paused. Who cooked? Rex straightened proudly. I did. Tunde burst out laughing. You? After ordinary onions disaster that made you run? Are you sure it's not as though slapping African star apples? Oh yeah, test it now if you doubt me. Tunji scooped a spoonful of rice and stew into his mouth. He chewed slowly. His expression changed from amusement to shock. You mean you made this? Yes, Rex said, crossing his arms. I am a changed man, a chef, a culinary genius. Tunji gave him a long, serious look. Bros, don't lie. Who actually cooked this? Rex groaned. Just eat your food before I change my mind. As Tunji devoured the meal, Rex leaned back, feeling like he had conquered Mount Everest. Maybe he wasn't completely useless after all. One meal at a time, he was learning. He still had a long way to go. But one thing was certain, he would never go hungry again. Rex woke up the next morning feeling like a champion. He had successfully cooked rice and stew the previous night without setting himself or the hostel on fire. That was a major achievement in his life. His ancestors were probably dancing in celebration. But today, he decided to take things up a notch. He was going to cook jollof rice. Yes, jollof rice, the king of all Nigerian meals, the pride of West Africa, the one dish that could start a war between Nigeria and Ghana. Rex didn't just want to cook. He wanted to make jollof that would bring tears to people's eyes. Not from too much pepper, but from pure joy. He pulled out his Cooking for Dummies book and flipped to the chapter on jollof rice. Step 1. Prepare your ingredients. No problem. He had his rice, tomatoes, pepper, onions and spices. He even borrowed mango cubes from his neighbor who eyed him suspiciously. Hope you are not planning to waste my mango like the last time, the guy warned. Rex laughed. Never. I am a professional now. His neighbor gave him a bombastic side eye but handed over the mango cube. Step 2. Heat the oil. This was where things started to go south. Rex placed his pot on the gas cooker, turned on the heat and poured in the oil. He felt like a pro until he realized something important. The fire was too high. The oil started sizzling aggressively, making a noise that sounded like, now you first find trouble. Rex panicked. He grabbed the pot handle, but the oil splashed and he screamed. Holy Ghost fire! In his confusion, he turned the wrong knob, increasing the gas instead of reducing it. The flames shot up. At that exact moment, his hostel mate walked in. He took one look at the situation and shouted, "Rest! Why is your pot on fire?" "I don't know," Rest screamed back. "What do you mean you don't know? You started it." "Yes, but now it has developed a mind of its own," Rest replied. His hostel mate ran to the sink, grabbed a bowl of water and was about to throw it at the fire when Rest suddenly remembered something he had read in the book. "Wait! Don't pour water on hot oil." But it was too late. His hostel mate emptied the bowl and instantly the fire exploded upwards like a Super Mario power-up. Both of them dived to the floor, screaming. The flames danced for a few seconds, then suddenly died down. The kitchen was left in complete silence except for the sound of Rex's heavy breathing. His hostel mate sat up, looking at the slightly burnt pot. "Rex." "Yes," he answered, still breathing heavily. "I don't think cooking is your destiny, oh." "Shut up, Joe. Were you not the one that poured water?" "Who does that?" Rex shot back. After that near-death experience, he became scared. He was tempted to give up. Maybe his true calling wasn't cooking. Maybe he was just meant to eat gala, cook, gari and the likes for the rest of his days as a student. But no, he refused to be defeated. With renewed determination, he started again, this time carefully following the instructions. He lowered the fire, added his tomatoes and pepper gently and let the sauce cook without burning down the kitchen. He measured his rice properly, added the right amount of seasoning and let it simmer. As the smell of jollof rice filled the room, Tunji walked in, consciously peeping over Rex's shoulder. "Wait, this actually smells good," Tunji said, surprised. Rex smirked. "I told you, I am a changed man." A few minutes later, they dished out the food. Tunji took a bite. His eyes widened. "Rex, yes? This is the most okay jollof rice I have ever eaten." Rex frowned. "Did you just say okay? Why not delicious?" Tunji shrugged. "Well, manage the okay as a compliment." Rex sighed, but deep down, he knew he had won. The journey wasn't over, but at least he had survived another day in the kitchen. As he leaned back chewing on his slightly burnt jollof, he made a silent promise to himself. One day he would cook perfect jollof rice, but for now he would settle for not burning the hostel down. Days later, he felt like he was ready for the next challenge. He had conquered rice. Now it is time to face his biggest fear, which is cooking beans. Now, let's get one thing straight. Cooking beans is not for the weak. It requires patience, endurance, and the mental strength of a warrior. The kind of patience only people waiting for NEPA to bring light truly understand. But Rex was determined. He wanted to cook beans and make it delicious. Step 1, according to his book, wash the beans. No problem. He poured the beans into a bowl and started rinsing it. Then he remembered something his mother once told him. Pick out the bad beans. He frowned. Bad beans? He stared at the bowl like a detective solving a murder case. But how am I supposed to know the ones that are bad? Am I a beans whisperer? He asked himself. After 5 minutes of staring, he did what any funny Nigerian guy would do. He closed his eyes and rinsed everything together. If the bad beans wants to be cooked, then it's not my problem. Step 2, according to his great book, put the beans on fire. He poured the beans into the pot, added water and set it on the gas. Then he sat back and waited. Children of God, he waited and waited. 30 minutes passed. The beans were still as strong as Nigerian Wi-Fi during an important Zoom meeting. 1 hour passed. The beans did not budge. Tunji walked in, saw the pot and laughed. Rest. You didn't soak the beans first? Rest blinked. Was I supposed to soak it? Tunji sighed. My brother, these beans will get ready by next week with the way it's going on. Rest panicked. He had not planned for this because he was so hungry. He tried to increase the fire, but all the increase did was to boil away the water, leaving him with hard, stubborn beans that refused to soften. In frustration, he added more water. 30 minutes later, the beans were still harder than Nigerian politicians during election season. Desperate, he did what only a truly hungry man would do. He started begging the beans. Please now, I have suffered enough today, just cooperate. The beans did not answer. By this time, Tunji had called his neighbors to come and witness Rest's struggle. They gathered around the pot like it was a spiritual cooking. Someone brought out a spoon, scooped a bit of the beans and tasted it. Then they fell to their knees dramatically. Rest. These beans are fighting for their lives. Another guy shook his head. I think these beans were made with bulletproof material. By the time 2 hours had passed, Rest was ready to cry. At this point, the beans were half cooked, half rebellious. They were refusing to soften, but Rest was too hungry to wait any longer. So he made a dangerous decision. He scooped the slightly hard, not quite ready beans into a plate, added some oil and pepper and started eating it like that. Tunji watched in horror. Rest, you are eating it like that? He nodded sadly. My brother, hunger has won. The first bite was a struggle. He felt like he was chewing small stones soaked in pepper. His jaw started hurting, but he kept going. By the 5th spoon, something strange happened. His stomach made a noise, not just any noise, a deep thunderous noise. Tunji and the other guys stopped laughing. They looked at him carefully. Rest, are you okay? He opened his mouth to answer, but before he could say anything, his stomach did the sound again. A loud, deep growl, like a lion announcing its arrival in the jungle. Tunde jumped back. The other guys ran out of the room. Everybody cleared the area because Rest has polluted the air and the smell was so obnoxious. Rest felt the beans of regret moving in his belly. He clutched his stomach and rushed to the restroom, knocking things over on the way. For the next 30 minutes, all anyone could hear from the hostel restroom was, God abeg, na die I dey so. God abeg. Tunji and the others stood outside shaking their heads, feeling pity for him. When he finally crawled out of the restroom, he was weak and humbled. He made a silent vow never to cook beans again. The beans had won this round, but the battle was not over. He laid on his bed, completely defeated. His stomach felt like it had gone through a major surgery, and he could still hear the echoes of his own screams from the restroom. Tunji sat beside him, shaking his head. Rest, how do you feel now? He groaned. My brother, I feel like I swallowed pure suffering. Tunji sighed. My brother, cooking beans is not for the weak. That food will either humble you or send you straight to your ancestors. At that moment, another deep unsettling noise came from Rest's stomach. Tunji jumped back immediately. Is it not over yet? Rex grabbed his stomach in terror. I don't know. I think the bees are organizing a second wave attack. Everyone in the room scattered. No one wanted to be around for what might come next. Tunji, being the responsible friend, knew he had to act fast before Grace's intestines declares a state of emergency. He rushed out and found Musa, the hostel's unofficial doctor. Musa wasn't a real doctor, but because he had watched all 16 seasons of Grey's Anatomy, he believed he could cure anything. He walked in like a professional wearing boxers and singlets, with a sachet of pure water in one hand. He looked at Rex's weak body and nodded seriously. This one bad oh. His stomach is crying in different languages. Tunji looked desperate. Dr. Musa, what do we do? Musa scratched his head. First, we need to calm his stomach before it starts sending distress signals to heaven. He reached into his medical bag, which was just a black nylon, and brought out 3 things. Number 1, activated charcoal. Number 2, pinanta, commonly called miracle leaf, the universal Nigerian cure for everything from headaches to heartbreak. And finally, chilled water. Because, why not? Drink this, Musa said, handing Rex the activated charcoal mixed with water. Rex took one sip and immediately regretted being born. This thing tastes like burnt sacrifice. Musa nodded. Good. That means it's working. Rex was too weak to argue, so he gulped it down, gagging the whole time. Next, Musa gave him the miracle leaf. Chew it, he instructed. Rex frowned. Chuke. Musa shrugged. Oga, is this stomach not paining you? Or don't you want your stomach to reset? Rex, now desperate to survive, chewed the leaf like his life depended on it. For a moment, he froze. His eyes widened. His soul briefly left his body and came back. He coughed violently. Musa clapped. Beautiful. Now drink this water to wash everything down. Rex grabbed the bottle like a dying man in the desert and took a long gulp. As soon as the water hit his belly, something miraculous happened. His stomach stopped complaining. The noises reduced. The pain started fading. Peace was being restored. Rex looked up in shock. It worked. Musa folded his arms proudly. Of course. You think all those years of watching medical dramas were for nothing? Tunji sighed in relief. Thank God. I thought we were going to lose him. Musa laughed. Never. Rex is a fighter. His intestines may have seen the gates of heaven, but they have returned. For the next 3 days, Rex swore off any food that required boiling for more than 10 minutes. He survived on bread, tea, noodles and gala. If he even smelled beans, his stomach would start doing rehearsals for another protest. On the 4th day, he sat with Tunji in the hostel common room sipping tea and reflecting on his suffering. Tunji asked an important question. So what have you learned from your recent experience? Rex sighed deeply. I have learned that beans is not just a food. It is a teacher. It is a test of patience, endurance, and spiritual strength. Tunji nodded. So, are you ready to try cooking it again? Rex violently shook his head. God forbid. Never again. Just then, one of their hostel mates walked by carrying a plate of steaming hot beans and plantain. Rex's stomach twitched. He looked away immediately. Tunji grinned. Oh yeah now? Don't you want to test some? Rex clutched his stomach protectively. Tunji, If you love me, please don't tempt me. I barely survived the first war. Tunji laughed. You will eat beans again one day, rest. Only if I marry a woman that knows how to cook it properly. Otherwise, I will just tell my future children that beans was banned. With this, he walked back to his room. His near-death experience with the bulletproof beans made him avoid anything remotely close to beans. If he sees a food menu with beans on it, he would immediately skip to the next option like someone dodging a scammer's phone call. But deep down, he knew he couldn't run forever. Beans had defeated him once, but he couldn't let it win permanently. One fateful afternoon, Rex came back from class hungry beyond measure. His stomach was singing the national anthem in soprano and his head felt lighter than his bank account. He rushed to his locker, hoping to find something edible. It was empty. His noodles finished. Bread gone. Gala? Not even the nylon remained. Panic set in. He looked around the room like a thief searching for an escape route. That was when he saw it. A lonely plastic container on his table. He opened it slowly and his worst fear was confirmed. It was beans. Tunji, who had just returned from the cafeteria, smiled wickedly. Rest, it is time. Rest froze. Time for what exactly? Tunji smirked. Time for you to face your destiny. Eat the beans, Rest. Rest stared at the plate like it was a trap. His stomach screamed. Eat it or die. His brain shouted. Don't do it, bro. But hunger was a powerful force. With trembling hands, he took a spoonful. He braced himself for another spiritual attack, but something unexpected happened. It was delicious. His eyes widened. Tunji, this beans is not trying to kill me. Tunji laughed. Of course not. I cooked it myself. Rex dropped his spoon. You? You cooked this? Tunji folded his arms proudly. Yes. Unlike you, I know how to respect beans while cooking it. With this, he was ready for Tunde's master's class. Eating and enjoying what a guy like him prepared made him so ashamed. At that moment, he had to master the art of cooking so that he won't be humiliated again. For the next 2 weeks, he trained under Master Chef Tunji. Lesson 1. Patience. Beans is not Indomie, Tunji said. You can't rush it. If you try to hurry beans will hurry you to the hospital. Lesson 2. The soaking ritual. Rex learned that soaking beans before cooking made it softer and reduced the chances of it becoming concrete. Lesson 3. Pepper control. How much pepper did you use the last time? Tunji asked. A handful, Rex replied. Tunji almost fainted. Are you cooking beans or making a chemical weapon? Beans and too much pepper are miles apart. Lesson 4. How to know when it is ready. Poke it with a spoon, Tunji said. Rex did. It was soft. Now test it. Rex hesitated. What if it fights back? Just eat it, Rex. With time, he became a master. His beans stopped attacking people. And then, one day, Tunji challenged him. Oya, cook beans for the whole hostel. Rex almost broke into sweat. Cooking for himself was one thing, but cooking for a group of hungry, judgmental students, that was a high-risk mission. Still, he accepted. He soaked the beans, boiled it gently, added the perfect blend of seasoning and even threw in plantain for extra flavor. Where he served it, the hostel boys held their breath. Tunji took the first bite. The room went silent. Then he nodded in approval. Mado, this is beans fit for a king. The hostel erupted in cheers. Even Musa the fake doctor said, if I die now, I die happy. Resh shed a single tear. He had done it. He had conquered beans. From that day on, he and beans became best friends. He made beans and corn on Sundays. He prepared beans porridge with smoked fish when he was feeling fancy. He even started eating moi moi and akara like a true champion. Whenever someone doubted his skills, he would say proudly, I once lost to beans, but now beans fears me. Hey, African Tools by Karma Tribe, how are you all doing? For me, I am doing just fine. Hope you all enjoyed the story as much as I did. Before I wrap up the story today, I would like to say this. Resi's story is a serious lesson wrapped in humor. While we all laughed at his struggle, the truth is, many young men find themselves in similar situations, completely lost in the kitchen and helpless when it comes to basic survival skills. Parents, especially mothers, often focus on training their daughters in cooking and house chores, while their sons grow like their princes who expect food to magically appear. Then, when the sons leaves home, reality slaps them harder than an African mother holding his slippers. So here are some golden advice for parents. Number 1. Stop raising royal highnesses. Your son is not an oga at the top who should sit and wait for food to be served. If he can eat, he should learn how to cook. If he can wear clothes, he should learn how to wash them. If he can walk on the floor, he should learn how to sweep and mop it. A boy is not allergic to house chores. Don't let your son grow up thinking cleaning is for girls while he specializes in pressing phone and watching football. Start training them early. If your 5-year-old son can operate a smartphone to watch cartoons, he can learn how to rinse plates. If your 10-year-old son can memorize the names of football players, he can memorize how to boil rice. If your teenage son can recite song lyrics, he can learn to wash his own clothes. Teaching them early prevents suffering later because trust me, if you don't train them, life will. And life doesn't use a gentle voice. It will teach them with hunger. It will teach them with dirty clothes and embarrassment. Cooking is a life skill, not a gender role. Food is a basic human need. Nobody should wait for a wife or girlfriend to come and save them from starvation. If a man can work, drive and manage businesses, he can also learn to cook food that won't send him to the hospital. Tell your sons, cooking is not a punishment, it is a survival skill. Sweeping is not gender-based, it is hygiene. Washing clothes is not slavery, it is self-respect. Because guess what? If a man can cook, clean and take care of himself, he becomes an asset, not a liability. Dear Karma Tribe, please encourage independence, not laziness. I will tell you for free. A boy who grows up doing nothing at home will grow into a man who expects his wife to do everything for him. That's how some men turn marriage into employment, where the wife is the full-time chef, cleaner and laundry expert, while the man is just there. Raise sons who can survive on their own. Even if they eventually get married, their wives will thank you for not raising a liability. And let me speak to fathers. Please lead by example. If you expect your sons to be useful too. If a boy never sees his father enter the kitchen, he will assume cooking is not for men. Show them that real men cook, clean and take care of their homes too. Dear mothers, Please stop pampering your sons while overloading your daughters with housework. Balance it out. Teach both sons and daughters that have chores and not gender based. They are life skills. And my final words for today, dear parents, don't wait until your son is in the university staring at uncooked rice like it is a science experiment before realizing you failed him. Train him early. A son who can cook and take care of himself will never be disgraced by beans. And that, my friends, is where I'll be wrapping today's story. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so. Until I bring another exciting story your way, it is a goodbye from here, and God bless you.